Sheesh. Okay.
So you've got a prime minister in Denmark who's a cross-dresser who's been promoted to that position via shame.
It sounds again, very much like the, a version at least of the Eyes Wide Shut kind of type, parties.
Exactly what it is. That's incredibly accurate. And it did something to Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman's marriage.
Yeah, well, that's right, exactly.
It busted that wide apart.
Yeah, it did.
And that was just acting the part.
Weird,
being
it. Strange. You know what? Yeah, please continue.
The sort of sexual deviancy that is happening now amongst politicians, which can be very well documented now, can be directly paralleled back to Hitler's time. And Hitler was an incredible sexual deviant.
Where does the information for that come from in regards to how his sexual orientation was?
Well, he's well recorded as a coprophiliac, which means he liked to be. It's called scat, is the colloquial name. He liked to be defecated on, and it was Eva Braun was one of the first people he found who was comfortable doing that, and that brought a huge amount of shame. And so it had to be very in-house. That made Hitler absolutely controllable. And originally Hitler was trained by the British between February to November 1912 in Ireland and England in the Tavistocks. And then he lived in Liverpool from November 1912 to May 1913.
Now,
so he spoke very good English. He was well and truly trained as a British agent, and he was sent to Germany and promoted through the ranks to destroy the German military, which he did completely. And then he had Germany fund Israel out of guilt of so-called killing 6 million Jews. And Germany now funds Israel.
Right, exactly.
And will do so until, I think it's 2094 is when the payments are due to stop.
That's what you're saying, that Adolf Hitler was in England between or in and around 1912 to 1913. As I understand, this is something that was supported by his, was it sister-in-law's book, The Memoirs of Bridget Hitler?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And she talked about this in her book?
She talked about it in incredible depth and from a position of domesticity, like from a position of being in the home and having him around and living with him, etc. And Hitler was constantly poring over maps and talking about Germany's takeover of Britain and Europe, etc. He had been deconstructed, which means that his mind was now aligned to the mind of the British government and the British war plans, as opposed to having his own subconscious mind. The subconscious mind had been trained and taken over by the British government.
But do you think he was kind of totally mind controlled, or was there still some kind of force, his personal side that was driving, him somewhere?
Well, in deconstruction, you still have a conscious mind and an unconscious mind, but your subconscious mind is completely controlled, and the subconscious mind controls the will, and it controls the future of the person and the meetings, opportunity, and synchronicity of the person. So that aspect of Hitler was completely taken over. Plus, because he was trained by a British agent, he was then supported by other double agents in Germany, and including the central bank financiers who were looking to create a war between Britain, Germany, and other countries, so that they could fund both sides of the war, and that way bankrupt the countries, take control of the governments, and make huge profits.
Right.
And that's exactly what happened. Everything went according to plan, except for Hitler's escape, which was a day late.
Okay, tell us about that.
Okay. It's called Operation Winnie the Pooh, and it was tacked on to Operation James Bond. Operation James Bond was a move by Ian Fleming, and the 2IC of that was Chris Crichton, to remove Martin Bormann out of Berlin on the 2nd of May 1945.
Mm.
And that eventuated, and Desmond Morton eventually took Martin Bormann back to Berlin for his own war trial, which he viewed from the from the viewing docks in the court,
Mm-hmm.
with plastic surgery, so he wouldn't be recognised. So Martin Bormann was actually at his own trial, but not acknowledged as being physically present.
Hmm.
And tacked on to Operation James Bond was Operation Winnie the Pooh, which was the operation to remove Adolf Hitler out of Berlin. Once Ian Fleming, who was head of Operation James Bond, had cited Martin Bormann and cited him as the real Martin Bormann, he then split off into Operation Winnie the Pooh and went from Berlin city banks of the River Spree in a launch up to Lake Mugglesea.
Mm-hmm.
And then he met Hitler, who flew in a Junkers Ju-52 3M G14E, which is essentially a hot rod plane. It's covered in corrugated iron, but had all the latest gear on it. And Hannah Reich landed Hitler and Eva Braun in Lake Mugglesea, and they were met by Commander Ian Fleming and Carolyn Saunders, who were both dressed in Russian military uniforms.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the parcels were passed with the full and partial bank numbers of Swiss bank accounts. And then Hitler and Eva Braun got on board, and they were acknowledged as Mr. and Mrs. Rabbit only. And then they were the launch was beached, and then they got onto a Westland Lysander 3A, which was flown by Hugh Verity, and they flew off to Barcelona. Met by Ramon Serrano Suna, who was the former 2IC of General Franco, and then Hitler lived out his days in Barcelona, in the Parc du Ciutadella, and in the Montserrat Monastery.
Wow, that's quite a story. So he did get away. That's what you're saying here, and this was
and basically everyone who was there and all the important people and intelligent people acknowledged that Hitler did not die in the bunker.
Mm-hmm.
They found 6 body doubles on top of the bunker, and they found another body double that was in the bunker that was outside and burnt.
Mm.
That was definitely a body double. And Eisenhower said that they hadn't found Hitler. Stalin said that they hadn't found Hitler. And Colonel W.F. Heimlich of the American Military Intelligence said it's unlikely that Hitler died in the bunker. And all the news reports said Hitler didn't die in the bunker. And then a poll in America soon after the war, it was Gallup poll number I-527, and it was something like 80% of Americans said that they hadn't captured Hitler, and Hitler did not die in the bunker.
Mm-hmm.
So it was generally thought then that Hitler did not die in the bunker, and they didn't actually request for a death certificate of Hitler until 1952.
Really?
And in the Potsdam meeting, and when was that? I can't remember when that one was. The Potsdam meeting, they took Hitler off the list of war criminals. So Hitler was actually never declared as a war criminal. And I think that's partly because he was a Rothschild. He was the grandson of Lionel Nathan Rothschild, who was the first Jewish British MP, and ran the central bank.
That's another kind of very interesting trail, so to speak, in this story, and let's dive into that right away. I mean, I guess that the story